everyone. This is Cristina Greco. Today with my colleagues Marianna, Boero and Saleh Altakrouri, we will discuss with you a topic related to COVID-19 post-truth and audiences participation. This study is part of a wider reflection on the discursive and narrative aspects of the language of misinformation and disinformation and fake news used in communicating COVID-19 audience participation online. The comparative phase of the study focuses on the practices of participation in media discourses within a diverse social cultural context through two different case studies, Italy and Saudi Arabia. In this contribution, we argue that social semiotics provides us a conceptual framework that allows us to reflect on the communication forms, focusing on how the discourses online related to COVID-19 pandemic are the emergence of an internal, fundamental and systemic process, and on what extent they impact on social identity in the second stage of the outbreak. Social semiotic perspectives help us to reflect on how the semiotic systems are producing a heavy production of fake news, false news, and misinformation, and also to understand the functioning of online communication and interaction, starting even from an analysis of the components of the discourses related to manipulation. In an era of hypernarrativity, which is leading to an hyper-circulation of discourses, the increased impact of fake news could be explained by thinking about the possibility for more people to create and spread contents over the social media. And at the same time is for them a possibility to express a level of uncertainty in social institutions such as, for example, media systems, science, and public institutions. So one important problem that has been highlighted by the semiotic perspective is the question of truth, in particular because in the semiotic perspective as consider not the truth itself, but the effect of truth, which means that the question is not a matter of connection between reality and effect, but an effect produced by the text itself. So the idea actually has been developed by a semiotician, Julien Greimas, in 1983 by developing the so-called square of veridiction. And this leads us actually to another important consideration regarding the post-truth discourses and how these can be also a counter-argument, developing something that is the opposite or a counter-argument toward the scientific inquiry with the aim of creating another theory and influencing people's opinion, persuading them in assuming other perspectives. So actually this is what we can relate to the idea of the relativity of the truth, and where we have same relative truth values that are based on the author's nature, and it does not matter the particularity of the author's nature, since it will be more related to the capacity of the author or in building and some strategies, rhetorical strategies in order to persuade the audience. And actually this is absolutely connected to the concept of text in semiotics, in which we have a variety of texts that we need to consider when it comes to fake news, false news, and miscommunication in a semiotic perspective, which actually consider not just the text as, for example, some specific rhetoric articulations, but all the discourses that are building upon specific discourse strategies, and also the different levels that we can study within the analysis of these texts. The thing is to consider fake news as text that can be analyzed on different layers and can also be analyzed from the point of view of the narrative structures and their rhetorical strategies. So, for example, we will consider and we will reflect on the different qualities of the text and also the recurrent components that we can find in fake news between Italy and Saudi Arabia.
A first step is the distinction between disinformation and misinformation. The disinformation is an inaccurate or manipulated information or content that is spread intentionally, whilst the misinformation is an inadvertent or unintentional spread of inaccurate information without malicious intent. A second step is to realize that fake news is only part of a more general phenomenon, a new way of conceiving truth that has been indicated with the expression post-truth. And the post-truth is an adjective relating or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotions and personal belief. Fake news and post-truth weaken the role of rational and reasonable argumentation in public debates, substituting them with emotional and or surreptitious arguments, and they allow public argumentation to be based on false premises that are fake news. Fake news can be seen as a special species of disinformation. Fake news reports exhibit a lack of truth, but they need not to be literally false. And not all false or misleading news reports are in turn fake news. What turns false or misleading statements into fake news is a lack of truthfulness. Fake news go along with the intention to deceive. The fake news discourse strategies are documentality, storytelling, visual exaggeration, and no call for interpretation. Documentality is a strategy that deals with the references and so with the exhibition of proof such as photo, a witness, a document that can be used as a guarantee of the veracity of what is being stated. Storytelling is the narration of story with omission of parts or manipulating chronology. Visual and textual exaggeration of messages uses strategies such as use of capital letters, close-up photographs, effects such as emotional impact or indignation. And the no call for interpretation refer, for instance, to posts or articles that do not require efforts of interpretation by the reader nor critical abilities. All ambiguity is cancelled out, and the tendency is to guide the story through predictable and problematic scenario. This part of our presentation deals with the Italian context, and in particular we will see 3 examples of fake news in Italy. The first is the vitamin C, represented as a cure against the coronavirus. 1 or 2 grams per day to defend against the coronavirus. The indication has been circulating insistently on social media for hours in the form of an audio recording made by an undefined woman. The file has been posted in all the active chats on WhatsApp. Some pharmacies report that in the following hours, customers have rushed to buy the supplement, so much. Second example, COVID-19 vaccine modified DNA. Among the most widespread fake news is the one according to which vaccine modified the DNA, but doctors deny. The task of the mRNA is only to carry the instructions for the production of proteins from one part of the cell to the other, which is why it is called the messenger. In this case, the RBA carries the instructions for the production of the protein used by the virus to attack itself to cells, the protein called spike. Thanks to vaccination, the body produces specific antibodies before coming into contact with the virus and immunizes itself against it. Third, fake news. 5G mobile phones spread COVID-19. In 2020, in the UK, there have been several cases of arson attacks on antennas or control units of the ultra-fast network for latest generation 5G mobile phones. The reason is in some conspiracy theories that have been running online for some time and that link without any scientific proof the plague of the coronavirus to the still gradual introduction of the 5G telephone data network. According to the most popular conspiracy theory online, 5G networks would weaken our immune system, thus making us more exposed to the coronavirus. The item was then relaunched by pro-Trump conspiracists on Facebook, on Twitter, and on various fake websites news. In Italy, these theories spread rapidly, affecting people's behaviors and opinions. The first case exemplifies the Buffalo fake news. It is usually characterized by broken, fragmented, sticky microstories with problems of structure, coherence, and therefore verisimilitude. They proliferate also for lack of verifications. The second case exemplifies the scientific fake news. For example, the anti-vaccine movements present all over the world. In these cases, the rhetorical strategies are more sophisticated. They use alarmism, catastrophism, and high conspiracy arguments, emotional impact, sometimes sustained by enunciators inscribed in the text with legitimizing function. The third case refers to a complex process, that is a naturalization of historical and cultural contents made by the media. Behind the anti-technological communication, for example, against the net, there is often the ideology of declinism that re-emerges in every age with new and insidious appearances. We can see some gestual constants in the narration and in the structure of the analyzed fake news. For example, the emotional component, which determines sensationalism and alarmism, a constitutive fog effect that simplifies and is disorienting, the apocalyptic tone which generates the catastrophic effect that is typical of modern fake news. To counteract disinformation, an up-to-date portal has been created in Italy in which the most widespread hoaxes are collected and where all false news about the virus is denied. So there is also a weekly review to combat vaccine falsehoods. The social world is also mobilizing against the hoaxes.
Saudi Arabia is a particular case also due to the current transformation that are affecting the social cultural context. Let's think, for example, to the removal of the ban for women driving that happened 3 years ago is still is affecting the changes in the cultural and social context, but also, for example, other changes in terms of the open to the tourism and also the restart of the entertainment activities. So it's interesting to see, for example, how Saudi Arabia reacted to the COVID-19 pandemic, also in terms of creation, production of miscommunications. And if we think about the difference in terms of timing with Italy, of course, in the case of Saudi Arabia, the COVID-19 pandemic arrived late compared to Italy. And what happened immediately is that a media agenda has been in contrast with the misinformation shared in particular on social media, and also through some influential newspaper, and creating so and spreading mistrust in the institutional discourses, such as we mentioned before, such as, for example, the sciences, but also the institutions. To give an idea of the situations in terms of miscommunication and misinformation in Saudi Arabia, today we will just focus on a few examples as recent examples linked to local newspapers, personal account, to also observe the online community's reactions and the reactions that actually led to new discourses coming from Saudi institutions. The first case has been published recently from a national newspaper, and in particular published on his account on Twitter. And this sentence is clearly mentioning the quality of nasal spray in killing coronavirus in 30 seconds. The interesting thing is that of course the source of the false news, since it's as we mentioned before, national newspapers with many followers on social media, but the other interesting thing is for sure based on the people's reactions, because it seems that many accepted the news in a passive way, such as more than 200 likes have been recorded under the post on Twitter. And actually this way of claiming something such as a new therapy that can solve easily the problem of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was actually phrased in an intentional way in order to spread false information regarding that. As the spray has been mentioned in other news worldwide, is only supposed to help with the prevention of the disease, but on a certain degree. So it's really interesting to reflect on how this actually had an impact on the people reaction, what kind of reaction they had under the post, and that actually there was not a systematic response and not a particular response in order to counter-argument the information shared by the newspaper. Example is coming from a community's participation, in particular is a private account on Twitter, and can help us in understanding also the community's reaction and how some of those discourses can build up on some strategies, rhetorical strategies, in order to attract people's attention, but also to convince them about something and about someone. It's a personal account, as I mentioned, that in particular was trying to create a reaction toward the limit given by the government of 20 people in wedding and funeral restrictions. So in particular, the post was theorizing that this restriction is made with another reason, which is the one of separating families and also race generation and isolation in order to influence them and to control them more. So it's interesting, of course, because this is also related to the particular situation of the cultural context in Saudi Arabia. The third example is related to a video which circulated on social media, in particular on WhatsApp, in which a person, spread actually rumors about new steps or different steps taken to curb the spread of the coronavirus. In this case, what is interesting is not just only the way in which they spread the message, but also the Saudi institutional reaction. On a deeper analysis of the three examples, we can find some textual constants based in the first case on the occurrence of key phrases and key concepts and words, such as the one regarding the killing of the virus and the capacity of this tool of resolving the problem of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's about creating a circulation that is able to generate an intertextual series that has multiple and overlapping exposures in different contexts. The second example is based more on an emotional appeal, where we can find a strong cultural reference to the Saudi Arabian context. And the idea is to attract people, but also to convince them about the truth of the message, distracting the audience from the implication and complication of the pandemic through the idea of being familiar to those cultural references, such as the one of the new generation in conflict with the old generation. The third one is more related to the social cycle, because it's an attempt of distracting or disorienting people by generating an effect of truth through media and the circulation within the social circle, by using, for example, some tools that can help people in understanding what are the right steps that have to be taken in order to avoid the pandemic, and creating in such a way a sort of effect of truth by showing them was the good direction they should take.
To the COVID-19 pandemic spread of fake news, the institution in Saudi Arabia built up this discourse related to this habit by charging people fees or even with jail. The moves follows warning by Saudi Arabia Ministry of Health, Ministry of Interior, and General Presidency of the Two Holy Mosques and other governmental entities that people should rely on trusted news source and not third party for information on the kingdom's handling of the COVID-19 outbreak. The Saudi public prosecutor warned that legal action will be taken against individuals who spread misinformation and rumors. Another example of an action was taken by Saudi Arabia. A survey was shared with people to let people know that they are ready to ban social media during the crisis to stop the fake news. Was in 2019 and more than 1,000 respondents, and 43% somewhat agree to do that to control this spread of false information and the miscommunication.
We have seen that there is a connection between fake news and people behaviors and belief. But should we blame communication or the advent of the digital media? This would be an oversimplification caused by a more or less latent technological determinism. Digital media have impact on this phenomenon, but we have to avoid determinism. There are other factors, such as the crisis of the liberal democracies and the distrust towards traditional and social institutions. A possible solution is to study this phenomenon, trying to understand why and how it spreads.
In conclusion, the research helped us to build a bridge between the different aspects of the two countries and highlighting both differences and similarities. First of all, in terms of times, since the pandemic started later on in Saudi Arabia compared to Europe and in particular to Italy, and secondly, because of the significant aspect of the community and the social institutions reactions. Another important aspect is related to the similar viewpoints on fake news that is clear from some of the communications analyzed during the research, but also the difference in terms of the major political measures taken, for example, in the case of Saudi Arabia. And of course, this actually is guiding us in a better understanding and analyze how those are different in terms of the reaction of the country to the condition of a communication who's leading to a misunderstanding also between the community and the institutions, causing also a divergent development of their trajectories. And I would like also to highlight the importance of this research because it's an ongoing research, part of a bigger project of comparing the social cultural processes which are the basis of different forms and types of communication between Saudi Arabia and Europe, specifically Italy, and it is just a small part of this research which is involving also students from both universities. It is important from our point of view monitoring how the communication of pandemic is changing, is evolving, is already evolved over the years into different cultural and social cultural contexts. Thank you.